So then lads, back with another video. Today I'm just going to be ranking every main Far Cry game. I'm only doing the main games here, so I'm not going to include spin-offs like Blood Dragon, Primal, and New Dawn. This is going to be similar to the Battlefield ranking video, I guess, but be a bit different because I only have Ubisoft Play for a week as opposed to the month of EA Play I had, so it's going to be a lot more rushed and I'm not very far into any of these games. Also, I'm just not a Far Cry fan in the same way I'm a Battlefield fan, so it's going to be an outsider perspective and I just won't know what really makes these games good. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, starting off in 6th place, the worst Far Cry game is Far Cry 4. So basically, the plot is you're this guy called AJ, and he's going back to his home country of Kyrat, which is literally just Nepal, but they did the fucking pussy move of getting a real country but making it like a fictional country to not offend anyone. It gives me real Urzikstan from Modern Warfare vibes. Then you go there, and the bus gets shot at, and then the king arrives, and he gets mad at the guys for shooting the bus, then like takes you back to his castle because it turns out that like you're right to him probably his son, so you're having dinner and he stabs the guy who came with you and then he has to go do a call, and I know there's a secret anyway you wait for him, but I did the one where you escape. So like yeah, the king knows you, and it's the trope where the villain's nice to the main character but no one else that I really hate. So yeah, you're just this important guy, and then the resistance comes along. They also know who you are, and you kind of escape and shoot people. Then you end up in a valley, and that's where you do the tutorial missions. In Far Cry 3, basically, you get taught to do things like skin animals and take out outposts, but in Far Cry 4, AJ seems to just know how to do that all of a sudden because he's that awesome. Also in Far Cry 3, you character kind of reacts weirdly to killing someone for the first time, but no, AJ seems to be completely fine mowing waves of soldiers down. Yeah, the stealth mechanics are pretty basic. They're just the same thing as Far Cry 3. One mechanic I did like that they added was for being able to throw bait to attract animals. I guess that was one positive. The healing system, it's incredibly dumbed down. It's basically the same as like all the other Far Cry games, but you regen as well, which makes it pointless. The healing animations as well, they look like not really hardcore like the other games, more like using a doctor's playset you'd get for a 3-year-old. Like he seems to have an infinite stash of adrenaline shots and bandages out of nowhere. I mean, once you go to the rebel base, it turns out that you're actually the son of a resistance leader. The king, called Pagan Min, he's not really your dad, he just banged your mom. So yeah, I'm sure those kids from Xbox party chat would treat me nicely if they met me. And then the army attacks and you fight them, then an avalanche comes and they go away, but for some reason no one's hurt the avalanche. Then you get to go in the open world, which is honestly a pretty strong word to describe something that's barely open at all. It's this one tiny valley. I completed this one mission where you hunt wolves. Literally, I couldn't go to any of the missions. I was trapped in this one place. The way out is blocked off by a road covered in buses. If you try to go over it, it says out of bounds and teleports you back to where you are. There's 0 outposts in that place. All that happens is you can get like resistance members fighting soldiers, which you can go help in, called a skirmish, but when you do that, there's only ever like 3 soldiers to fight. I guess you get some wildlife attacks. That's one positive about this game, but it's almost impossible to tell how to progress. There seems to be barely any weapons to be found. Like everyone just has AK-47s. Maybe there's some way to get past this one stupid little area, but it should really be easy to work out how. I mean, visually, the world looks nice. Little mountains, like the art style of everything being kind of Nepali, but the water doesn't make sense. It's supposed to be a whole country, but it's just a mountain with a few houses in it. Shouldn't there be like proper infrastructures like power stations, water treatment, working roads, government buildings? But no, I guess people in Asia are living in the Stone Age. Honestly, like it's hard to believe that this could be a country. Like saying Far Cry 6 is way more believable as a country, even Far Cry 2 as well. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. So next on the list is Far Cry 6. Similar to 4, you're in a fictional country that's got a dictatorship, Yara, which is literally just Cuba but with a different name. in the 60s there was a revolution, and that left the country in socialism, which made them all poor. Then, when they elected Stan Edgar as president, he invented this cure to cancer, which can be made from modified tobacco plant, which, yeah, I'm sure a country that's been poor for so many years will be able to do what scientists in first world countries have failed to do for like a century. I'm sure if they had this much tobacco, they couldn't just sell a modified version of that and not go through all the trouble of researching it. And now he's drafting people into being slaves to grow these things. It's not like people who've been living in poverty for decades would jump at a job opportunity like that. So it looks like people get free food and shelter at the plantations. And your character, Danny, an orphan who served in the military, gets an opportunity to work at this place, basically to be taken as a slave. Martial law's being declared, so they just go through the streets and shoot people just because they're evil. They're looking for you, and you have to escape. One of your friends throws a bottle of fruit like a fucking idiot, gets shot. That was actually funny. You have to escape the city. The city sequence was brief, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't an open world sequence, just in generic rooftops and alleys. What I do like though is how your character actually served in the military and didn't just be able to pick up a gun and shoot well-trained soldiers like in 3 and 4. Thought that was a nice touch. So yeah, once you escaped the city, you get on a boat, and then it turns out that Stan Edgar's son was on the boat, and he gets really angry at him, and shoots up the boat to make an example of it. Then you wash up on the shore, your other mate's dead, you have to go to the camp with like the freedom fighters, and you just want to do jobs for them so you can get a boat to go to America, but like all the freedom fighters, they hate America and they think that you're going to stay. You just take out a few bases and that's pretty much it. The gameplay is like an AI saw every Far Cry game and just made this fucking copy. You can see health bars and enemies now, which is a really stupid touch. It's kind of dumbing down the games to get further along. You can't skin animals anymore. You get meat, which you can trade for scraps. They have a whole entire scrap mechanic, which I'm sure will be useless. You now get different types of ammo, like soft body and armor piercing. But armor piercing doesn't actually work on people without armor, because I guess that's how it works. It's not like a high velocity, high caliber bullet could kill someone. No, the bullet, it reads people, see if they have armor on. If they don't, they're like, oh no, it's not my job, I'm an armor piercing round. But I guess soft body rounds and normal rounds are different, because soft body rounds are designed for soft targets. Like, what the fuck? You mean this guy called Juan Cortez, who's just annoying. The machete takedowns in this game, they look way too loud and time consuming to be anything but practical. There's this kind of bullshit climbing mechanic, which I'm sure will never be used. You can holster your weapons, which, I mean, it's not really useful considering that you can just take out everyone anyway, because the AI in this game is fucking brain dead. You get checkpoints now, which I like. That was a neat touch. You can't go over them in vehicles, you have to liberate them, but there is this really annoying animation when you take them over. You get horses now, which I guess thought was neat. It's easy to come across weapons, so you'd have to spend like hours looking for a pistol to be able to shoot out a car. Overall, this just isn't a very good game. I mean, one thing I liked about was it had wildlife, I guess. The setting looked nice, something to take a while to introduce the wildlife, but you can fight animals if you really want to piss off vegans, I guess. Yeah, there's not really much more to say about it. Alright, coming up next on our list is Far Cry 5. I feel like we've got all the bad ones out the way now. This one I consider to be mid. Okay, so how this works is you got this place in America called Hope County. I'll give this game props for being the only Far Cry game to take place in an actual country. But this game does not let you forget that it's in America. It couldn't be more American in terms of aesthetics, unless you use a can of spray-on cheese as a healing item. So basically, you're one of 4 only cops in this county who haven't been like bribed by the cult, and you go to arrest the cult leader at his compound. But then, like the dumbass cult followers, like they seem intimidating and quite good antagonists in the intro sequence. That doesn't last throughout the game. As you're arresting him and taking him away, they jump on the helicopter. This one motherfucker jumps right into the rotor blades, gets chopped up, which causes you to crash. For some reason, you and the cult leader Joseph Seed are the only people not knocked out by the crash. He calls dispatch. Turns out dispatch is working for them, so you're not going to get any backup. Goes away. You're the only one who escapes. You learn stealth mechanics. Now, it's better than Far Cry 4 because it kind of makes sense that your character knows how to fight, given that they're a cop. Now, you have a silent protagonist in this game, which you can customize, which I like. I mean, it's got a lot of hate for that, but I feel like a silent protagonist is better than almost every Far Cry protagonist. So you fight a bit, then you meet up with the marshal before getting thrown off a bridge and get taken by this guy who's living in a bunker. You burn your uniform because it's not like the cultists would remember your face or anything. Then you go out there and like liberate his little island. What I notice is every time you go into any sort of character customization thing, there's notifications saying you get to change clothes once you liberate Dutchess Island. I mean, it's got the fucking store pages in the menu screen. You get constant reminders that you get to spend shit in this single player game, like it's a mobile game or something. The combat's nicely paced, I guess. It doesn't spend ages fucking around with boring tutorials. You get straight into the action of liberating the island. Once you've done that, you can go straight to the open world, which is nice, I guess. You can free hostages and get missions from them. Get mission to liberate this town. You get to different outposts and you liberate them. The cultists call for backup because they're that powerful. I mean, I don't get how the cultists managed to take over a county in the country where people learn to shoot before they learn to read and write. According to Dutch, they cut off all the radio and telephone lines, blocked off all the roads, but they had planes and helicopters. Don't get how no one could escape. I don't think that there would be any people, passing through or into the county who might notice that and call the police or something. Like, is the internet blocked off? Can you not just like email the army for support? Yeah, the story doesn't really make sense. The AI in this game, yeah, it's just as brain dead as in 6, but the gameplay still feels pretty fun. Like, I like the driving mechanics, I guess. Some combat with animals. Outpost Liberation feels semi-fun. I like the music, that was good, but yeah, basically just describe the game. There's not much else to say about it. Okay, so now we're getting on to the good games in the series, and third place on the list goes to the original Far Cry 1. So how it works is, from what I've heard from people reviewing the shit film that was made about it, you're this guy who does boat tours on an island, and this chick takes you out to see the island, but then your boat gets blown up by the mercenaries who are on the island, which is run by this evil scientist. This is really trippy intro sequence. I mean, I'm glad it didn't take around fucking with some kind of tutorial, but clearly didn't make more sense. So you get onto the island, you're in the sewers, and you get a kind of tutorial to walk around. This was made before I was born, so the gameplay, it looks really old. It looks like Half-Life. It doesn't have some older mechanics you might think, like healing on the go or aiming down the sights, but that's honestly fine. I think it works in the game's advantage. This game is much more linear than the open world series that we're used to. It could almost be called semi-open world. After the tutorial, which you spend no time fucking around with you kind of get into the open world-ish, if you can call it that. There is cutscenes in this game. They're called Far Cry 6, the first Far Cry game to have it in, but no, they're in this game, and they feel they're really generic, but they're just funny how they are in a way I can't explain. So you have a weapon wheel. The machete is actually a separate item instead of just being a single button to take down, which I found neat. You get to choose between lots of different grenades to throw. There's different fire modes. There's much more physics as well. Like, you'd think these features would carry into the later games, but apparently not. So you get to go around the open world a bit. And there's this guy on the phone, I think he's a de facto scientist from the research lab who tells you what to do. But yeah, the open world feels pretty barren. Like, it's not just like in Far Cry 4 when the entire country is just dedicated to the conflict. Like, there's literally nothing else on the island other than these mercenaries, which I didn't really like. I get it was made in the past, so it's not going to have features like shops or some sort of home-based system, morality like the rest of the games, but I know it's an old game, but that doesn't change the fact that these flaws are there, and the game you probably do nothing much other than shooting and sneaking. But yeah, there's vehicles this time. You get armor system, which I don't think carries the rest of the other games apart from 3. There's a sprint meter which isn't in many of the other games. You don't have the iconic healing animations. You said you pick up health patches early, but the shooting does feel pretty satisfying. The stealth is pretty advanced for something made in the past. In fact, it's more advanced than Far Cry 6, the most recent game in the series. The gameplay just feels fun, okay? Even if you don't put much thought into it, the stealth, the combat, the shooting, it all just feels so nice. The story may be generic, and there's quite a lot of linear sections that you can get through. It seems kind of boring. You might be able to die with repeats, but still definitely worth a play. And it's aged like fine wine throughout the years. And now the second best game in this series is going to go to Far Cry 3. So the way this works is you're a classic tourist and you go to this island which is somewhere in the Pacific, like seems to be a mix of a lot of cultures, but the cartel and human traffickers that work for them are on this island. You're playing as Jason and you get kidnapped by Nacho Varga and you're held at this camp and you escape with military training from your brother Grant, who gets shot almost instantly. I mean, I did play through the intro of the game, which you could go check out if you want to see it for yourselves. But yeah, after the intro sequence, you kill a guy, you're pretty shocked to it. I mean, it kind of goes similar to Far Cry 4 on the trope that your character just managed to pick up a gun and fuck up anyone in his path, but makes more sense because A, your brother's a soldier and he trained you a bit, I think you mentioned that in the lore, and B, you're fighting cartel members and pirates, not trained soldiers. So then you wake up in this shack and the guy gives you a machete and tells you like to hunt for plants and fish. Yeah, this sequence is really boring as you just go around doing various tasks, hunting for animals and climbing radio towers. But eventually you get to liberate your first base, and that's where shit kind of kicks off. This game was kind of like COD 4 of the Far Cry series, where it kind of set a template for the rest of it. But it just does most of the things the later games do, but better. The combat, the stealth, the social systems, we have like buying and stuff. They're all refined, but they're not too bloated out. It feels like it was perfected the first time I did it with this formula. Basically everything you see in the games maybe beyond that was set in Far Cry 3, and I find that pretty good. If you go watch my playthrough video for more information on it. There's not really much else to say about it. Like, you can swim and use boats, but yeah, that's in all the other games. I don't really what I'm talking about. It just feels like a more refined experience of the things that came after it. The story is decent, I guess. Like, I've watched Pyro's video on it. I know that like the whole point of your character going around a path of insanity. I'm not going to say the line. And you attempt to rescue your friends and kill Nacho Varga. That is like part of the message or something. Yeah, the story's alright, a lot better than the other games. So yeah, when it set the base plate for the rest of the series, it was pretty good, but it's what came before it that managed to be the number one. So the number one game in this series is Far Cry 2. The way it works is you're in a fictional country, yeah, I know, in Africa, with two warring sides. You're also this guy called the Jackal, who is your character Jack, who you played as in the first game. You can play as any mercenary from a selection. That really doesn't affect what happens in the game. But basically, you go into this country, and after a long, boring car ride, you're hit with a dose of malaria. You wake up in the hospital, and the Jackal's right there, but he kind of gives you a machete and a pistol. Wait, hotel, not hospital. So anyway, yeah, you go to sleep after he gives you some speech. Then when you wake up, you see both the factions fighting outside. You fight your way out of it before dying. Wake up in one of the factions' bases. The guy tells you that you're working for him now, so you go and do quests. After that, you basically free roaming the world, and you just get to do shit. The gameplay in the thing, it's a lot more hardcore, I guess. The healing animations, they're so much more brutal than in pretty much any of the other games. Introduce things like base liberation, stealth takedowns. I'm just like, it really sets a lot more gameplay for the rest of the series than Far Cry 3 if I'm going to be totally honest. Like, the departure between Far Cry 1 and 2 is probably the biggest gap out of any in the series. Some features that carry over from 1, like not having a crosshair in the middle of your screen and having a much more basic healing system, but it does introduce some more modern features, I guess, like ADS and much more vehicles. The world feels alive. I've definitely, like, you have the factions fighting, you get some wild animals, you can go to different hometowns, and like there's a ceasefire going on where if you go and shoot people, you are going to get teamed up by both factions. Yet you're in the middle of this war zone. Neither sides are really your friends. You can get into beef for anyone, no matter who you're doing missions for. You kind of go out the world doing missions. There's not much of an overarching story other than kill the jackal. You can get different buddies you find around the world, not from rescuing, just people who do work for money, and they come to you when you're down. They just materialize out of the blue, but they're a really useful thing to have. The malaria is actually a game mechanic. You can collect certain pills, you go on missions to find these pills. And really adds a lot more. So it gets the hardcore survival feel of this game. The music, it can be intrusive at times, but it's pretty good. It picks up when you're in combat. Vehicles, they need repairing. They can get damaged after being shot. Weapons jam. They can outright break after you fire them too much. Basically, everything in this world was trying to kill you. I don't really have much more to say about this. I still haven't played much of any of these games, so sorry if all these sections felt short. So yeah, that was it. Maybe comment down below how you'd rank them. And that does it for today. So feel free to subscribe, watch some of my other videos if you want. Maybe like, I kind of don't give a shit about likes. So then lads, that's the end.